96.7 The Eagle. And don't forget to visit our website at hometownnewsnow.com. It's the Weekend Entertainment Guide on 96.7 The Eagle and at hometownnewsnow.com.
Corn and soybeans mixed while oil prices fall back to earth. This is Hoosier Ag Today. I'm CJ Miller with your Monday midday farm market update. Oil prices down sharply. At one point this morning, oil was trading below $100 for the first time since Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and that's on reports of possible peace talks between
the sponsors. The Liquor Vault on-air line is now open for your calls or texts at 219-362-0522. This is Sound Off on 96.7 The Eagle.
Welcome, friends. Today is Monday, March 14th, and somebody prayed over the weekend for some better weather. Way to go. It is beautiful outside. If you've not, if you're just kind of waking up, you're a late, sleeper, and you're just getting around, you need to go outside after the show, enjoy some nice 50s Indiana weather, because in the spring in Indiana, 50s feels like 90s in July. It's just wonderful. So good to have you with us. I hope you had a great weekend. We are starting into some primary stuff on the show. So over the next, 2 months until the May primary, you're going to see and hear a lot of different candidates, their platform, why you should maybe vote for them. And hopefully, again, it'll clarify your vote. I've told you before, I'm not a huge advocate of voting straight ticket party voting, because I believe you should listen and learn from the candidates that are running and vote for the people that you think are the best qualified and have the best ideas. That's the beautiful part of democracy. So we've got someone in the studio I'm happy to introduce you to today. Sean Fagan is the Republican candidate for LaPorte County Prosecuting Attorney. If you have a question for Mr. Fagan, you're welcome to call the Liquor Vault on air line at 219-362-0522. You can also email me at soundoff@967theeagle.com. And if you're streaming with us on YouTube or Facebook, you're welcome to put those comments in the feed there, and I will check them a couple times during the show and read those to Mr. Fagan as well. So, Sean Fagan, welcome to the studio. Glad to have you on the show. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, good to have you. I'm glad to have you with us. So you are running for LaPorte County Prosecuting Attorney. Now, I'd like to know, and again, I think our listeners would like to know a little bit more about you. Where are you from? How'd you get here? And what do you do?
So, yeah, thank you. I am not from Indiana. My daughter and son are born in Indiana. They're native Hoosiers. My mom is from Indiana. My wife has been, she's from Westville, and her family's been there 30, 40 years. So, everybody else around me in my circle of orbit is a Hoosier.
You're an adopted son of Indiana, though. Yeah.
Yes, by way of grafting. Mm-hmm. So I came here in 2012 to go to law school. Now, I'm originally from North Carolina and Georgia. I grew up outside Atlanta and near a little town in North Carolina called Asheville. Not quite Asheville, but just close enough. Mm-hmm. But Great Smoky Mountains National, near that neck of the woods. And then in 2012, I got accepted into Valparaiso University to go to the School of Law, graduated 2015, and then met my wife in 2016, had my first child, met my wife in 2015, married in 2016, first child in 2017, and then in 2018, second child in 2019, started working with DCS.
Wow. So and then in 2022, you decided to run for, LaPorte County Prosecuting Attorney. So it's been a busy 7 or 8 years for you. So let's get into, you said you went to law school, I assume maybe Valparaiso University? Or?
Yes.
Okay. So you went to Valparaiso University. You've decided to get into child DCS governmental law. What is it that you specifically do for DCS?
So DCS is a statewide, for those who don't know, it's a statewide organization. Local counties all have their own office, and we do many of things through the local office here in LaPorte or in Michigan City or in Gary or in Valpo, and they do a number of things. They do child welfare, they do foster home placements, they do child subsidies for when someone gets adopted. They do a number of things, but mainly the job of DCS is to protect children and to look out for their best welfare. So what I do as an attorney over in Gary, I've been doing Gary, working out in Lake County for the last 3 or 4 months. Before that, I was commuting to Allen County to Fort Wayne. Fort Wayne is the third busiest court system for CHINS, Child in Need of Services, child welfare in the state of Indiana. Lake County, Gary is the number 2. Marion is the largest, but I've been doing that for a while. And what it is pretty much is representing the agency, the department, before courts, trying to protect children and helping parents get to where they need to be so that when a child is removed from their home, that we have a reunification permanency. Because when a child is removed from their home, that's very traumatic. We have studies that say trauma is inflicted when children are removed. They're not from their parents, and it's not just for the child, but for the parents as well. And so what we try to do is to align the needs of the child or children and with the needs of the parents through the court system, through coercive, what's used in the statutes and case law. It's called the coercive intervention of the court. You can't normally do it on your own, so through DCS, we provide services, and so that the children and the parents benefit through the power of the court system in order that they achieve reunification on some level. Now, for most cases, 70% is a good number. It's 65 to 75%, but 70% of all cases where the DCS is involved in results in reunification. So it's that 25 to 30% that results in adoption or TPR, which is called termination of parental rights. Those are the unfortunate cases where parents are unable to get to where they need to be. So then DCS has to go before a court and say, hey, unfortunately, we have to do this, Your Honor. Let's find a new home permanency for this child.
So you've got this experience and it's obviously in LaPorte County. We've had this broader conversation based on a tragic death we've had with a child just months ago. And so obviously DCS is a conversation that on this show and in this community people have been talking about. So you've got this experience as a lawyer within DCS and working CHINS cases. And again, if people are unfamiliar with the Department of Child Services, there is a lot of legal stuff going on there. So I understand you're probably busy there. What made you, though, decide to say, I'm going to run for prosecuting attorney? Because people often don't think, or don't understand that law is a very big kind of study, right? It's a very broad study. Just because you do one law doesn't mean you do another law. But you've decided you also want to do this other type of law, prosecuting attorney, and throw your hat in the ring there. What kind of made you decide to do that?
Well, when I first started law in 2015, I was doing mainly practice in Lake County, doing insurance defense, so a bunch of civil litigation. And then in 2018, I started my own practice where I was catering primarily to the needs of nonprofits and churches, pretty much. So churches, and then after doing that with the birth of my son, who's special needs, in trying to balance him in my own practice and my other family needs, I went to go work for DCS over in Allen County. So a lot of what I've done in the civil world and in CHINS, in child welfare, a lot of it is the same, because you can, the great secret of law is that no one tells you that switching from practice area to practice area is, if you give it time, is pretty easy. So I've done civil litigation, was a trial lawyer for 2-3 years, doing that primarily on both sides of personal injury. So that requires knowing the rules of evidence, knowing the trial rules, knowing a bunch of different things. Just, how do you talk to people and getting the answers you want and getting a judge or a jury to go your way. So did that for the first 2-3 years of my practice, did my own thing, and then doing child welfare chins, working with DCS. A lot of that training moves into prior experience, moves into what I'm doing with DCS, because a lot is the same principles. How do you make a point? How do you convince someone to do something that you want them to do? And are you advocating for your client within the frameworks of the statutory framework, and knowing the trial rules, knowing the rules of evidence, and just, being a decent person who can get along with other people? Because in DCS, in child welfare, it's really there's not just it's not just the state versus the dependent, or the parents,
The family, yeah.
It's the GAL, the guardian ad litem. It's the CASA. It's the court. It's service providers. There are a lot of voices coming in saying, what is the best thing? What is the best outcome for this child or these children, or whatever the situation is? What's the best outcome for the parents? And so you're working together, a lot of input going in to kind of say, hey, what are we trying to do here? And so a lot of that training, experience, kind of motivation goes into the criminal system, what a prosecutor does, because the prosecutor doesn't just have to represent the state against defendants. It's working with law enforcement. It's working with outside agencies. It's working with the state in order to provide certain kinds of funding. It's working with victims. So you're working with a lot of parties, trying to, what is the best outcome for what we're trying to do in seeking justice, making sure that defendants and those convicted are, rehabilitated to the point of a successful outcomes. Because frankly, one of the things that, think of it this way, think of it as a triangle. Let's do the mental block. We'll draw a triangle in your mind. On one corner, you have economic development. Second corner, you have social matters, social issues. And on the third, you have public safety. If any one of those is out of whack, then the whole system just decides to go poof. Mm-hmm. So for the prosecutor, it's focusing on, at least for me, it's a holistic view, focusing on public safety. What can I do with public safety in order that people are more stable, that we have stable families, stable people with stable jobs? Because people who have stability, say, for Rule 26, criminal rule, they do probation, or not probation, but doing for bond and bail, they do a diagnostic report. And so basically, the higher the score, the worse off you are. I'm getting old and I forget things, because I'm so excited to be here, and I'm just nervous, and there's only so much time in order to say what I want to say in these brief few minutes. But basically, people who are more stable are less likely to commit crime.
Absolutely. All right, we've got Sean Fagan on the show today. If you've got a question, 219-362-0522, or you can email me at soundoff@967theeagle.com. Or if you have a question and you're streaming with us live on Facebook or YouTube, just put it in the comments there, and I'd be happy to ask as well. We're going to take our first break of the day, and we'll be right back here on 96.7 The Eagle.
Car problems often strike at the absolute worst times, but you can rest well knowing that Cannon's Automotive Service is here for you and dedicated to get you back on the road with prompt, efficient, same-day service. The same Cannon's commitment that LaPorte has trusted for over 50 years. Cannon's Automotive Service, now with 2 locations, 710 Tyler Street and 909 Boyd Boulevard.
With Cannon's Automotive, we fix everything.
Vote Fagan 2022. Who is Sean Fagan? He's a lawyer. He's a Republican. Sean Fagan, running for LaPorte County Prosecutor 2022. Sean Fagan knows that LaPorte County is a great place to live, and he wants to keep it that way. Sean Fagan for LaPorte County Prosecutor 2022. Be safe. Be strong. Let's work together. Vote Sean Fagan 2022. This message paid for by Fagan for Prosecutor.
Exceed your expectations of what makes a great paint or stain with Pittsburgh Paints and Stains from Menards. Now, all 11% off with some of the most advanced technology like enhanced UV resistance, dirt shedding protection, and true one-coat coverage paint and primer in one. Finding your perfect paint or stain is easy. Get 11% off everything, including Pittsburgh Paints and Stains, now at Menards. Good through March 19th. Savings are mail-in rebate. Some exclusions apply. See store for details.
Save big money at Menards.
Hey, who's hungry? Because I've got a deal for you. Dennis Adele here to introduce you something new to the Morning Mayhem. Every weekday at 6:55, it's Denny's Diner. Yep, Joe and I will cook up some trivia questions, and if you have the correct answer, you'll be the winner of a $20 gift card from either JJ's Side Out Bar and Grill, the Burger Barn Grill, JJ's Pizza Shack, Wanna Pizza, or Nowhere Barn Grill. So join us weekdays for Denny's Diner at 6:55 on the Morning Mayhem for your chance to win here on 96.7 The Eagle.
Your opinion matters. We invite you to share it by calling or texting the Liquor Ball on-air line at 362-0522. That's 362-0522. Now, back to Sound Off on 96.7 The Eagle.
Welcome back, friends. Good to have you on today's Sound Off. Today is March 14th. We've got Sean Fagan, the Republican candidate for LaPorte County Prosecuting Attorney, in the studio with us today. And we're going to get to your questions here in a second, but I want to remind you, be quick with it. Ask the question. We've got lots of callers. Our switchboard's full right now, so we're going to get to as many callers as possible. So let's get to our first caller. Hey, thanks so much for calling. What's your question for Sean Fagan?
Yeah, I got two questions. The first one is, what is your trial experience to be prosecutor, and why should the people vote for you as prosecutor? Thank you.
Thank you. So what is your trial experience, and then why should people vote for you?
So let's, with COVID, with COVID, trials have been going down, and statistically, 95 to 97% of all cases are plea bargain or plea agreements. So trials are a rare thing. Now in LaPorte County is kind of an outlier. So last year in criminal cases there were 18 trials, but in Porter County, for instance, they had, I brought the numbers here just to remind me, I'm getting old. So in a comparable county, comparable to population of LaPorte County, Delaware County, last year, five jury trials. In Porter County, they only had 8 last year.
And they're about twice as big as us, right?
Yeah, they have 60,000 more people than LaPorte County. So trials by themselves are their jury trials are rare. What happens more, though, is bench trials or agreements or dismissals. One of those. That's how most cases are disposed of. When we say disposed, we mean they're off the books or taken care of. Whatever, that's the fancy legal term. But in terms of more practical experience, more directed to the caller's question, my experience is mainly bench trials because that's what I do nearly every day in Chin's Court, in Gary, and in Fort Wayne. That's the experience. Same rules apply. You're calling witnesses. You're doing evidence. You're getting things in or out, or raising objections, or fighting for your client, the department, and for the kids. So that is the most important. So mainly bench trials, but also what was the second question? Why vote for me?
Yeah, why vote for you?
Now, you've heard it a million times probably, but the ad. So the ad, the slogan, be safe, be strong, let's work together. I think for me that just wasn't, political speech where you can say, oh, let's, change. Mm-hmm. Well, what does that mean? It means nothing. And it's, it means nothing, change. But when I put it in the ad, I did it for a reason. Crime is up. We need a leader for a prosecutor, and we need a prosecutor who actually talks to law enforcement, doesn't disrespect them, doesn't overburden them so they can't do their job. It's having a prosecutor who's keeping people safe. Crime is up. Michigan City up 0.1%. That's not a lot, or 0.1%. That's not a lot, but drugs, gun crimes are way up in Michigan City, and since that's the largest population center besides LaPorte, between LaPorte and Michigan City, that's 60,000 people. That's half the county residents. Yeah. So if there are major issues with drugs and with guns and with more traffic accidents, then you got a problem. And if the prosecutor isn't responding to the needs of law enforcement, then what good are you?
All right, we've got Sean Fagan, Republican candidate for LaPorte County Prosecuting Attorney, on the show today. 219-362-0522. If you have a question, let's get to another quick question. Hello, what's your question for Sean Fagan?
Yes, mine is I'd like to know your views on the death penalty and a death penalty trial, specifically against somebody that is already incarcerated for multiple murders, with the most recent being of a correctional officer. Thank you.
I wish I had mentioned this earlier on the broadcast, but one of the things that motivates me is my sense of values, my sense of ethics, and that's just not general ethics or values. It's concrete, and it's concrete in a religious tradition. We were talking earlier before the show where I had gone to seminary. I graduated with an MDiv. I went to a Eastern Orthodox seminary. And while I am not Eastern Orthodox, I graduated with a Master of Divinity, which is the first, it's a professional degree, same like a law degree or a medical degree. So that training, and plus my own sense of values in just who I am as a person, the way I view things, is that death penalty cases require a lot of work in order to achieve a certain outcome, which is death of an defendant, death of an offender. And, views on death penalties, on how we handle death penalties in the United States is changing. So whether you're able to convince a jury, plus in some of the other things required, whether you're able to do that will depend on your skill and will depend on your ability to create a jury that will find for a death penalty. So whether it's feasible compared to life without parole is, I don't know. It's a tough question, one that requires serious consideration.
So are you against the death penalty in practice, or is it just one of those things where in order to want to pursue the death penalty, it'd have to be something drastically serious? Or
let's go with the second. What she was talking, the caller was talking about Tymetri Campbell, who was the offender. So because of that, I know what she's getting at. I don't really want to comment since that I could very well be dealing with it. So I don't really want to comment too much, and that's not to offend the listeners, I know, but with hypotheticals, I'm really happy to speak about, but with certain particular crimes or scenarios, which I very well may be facing next year as the new incumbent, I don't really want to get into that.
All right, let's get to another call. We got Sean Fagan in the studio today. What's your question for Mr. Fagan?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'd like to broaden out the answer to the last question, Sean, and ask you, how will your value system inform the way you operate as a prosecutor? Question one. Question two, what is the importance of a value system to someone who has the immense power of deciding who is charged with crimes or not charged with crimes in chief law enforcement, chief enforcement in a certain sense? Those are the two questions. How does your value system inform? That's all I have.
All right. Yeah. So I think the caller wants to know a little bit more about how your value system specifically informs and why it is important to have a value system to inform.
Well, one is on, if you want to make it clear cut, think of it as two parts. One, I'm an American and I believe in the Constitution and the rights given to us in the Bill of Rights. They're not just given to us. The Constitution, it guarantees certain rights. And as a prosecutor, you have to vigorously defend those rights, namely the Fourth, Fifth, and Sixth Amendments, which are, search and seizure, jury trial, right to counsel, all that stuff. So in 7 and 8 as well. But that's the one half. And no matter whether you're prosecutor or public defender, those rights make our system better and more professional. Think of it for police. So over the last 50, 60 years with Miranda rights and more constitutional litigation regarding how the 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendments are applied with your 8th Amendment, those things make police better. It makes them more professional, and it holds the government to a higher standard. And so when the caller was asking your value system, it's holding us accountable to a higher system, because if you want to think about it theologically, we're all going to be held to account at some point by, whatever if you have faith or no faith, you're all held accountable. I used to do sessions with when I was doing hospital ministry. I used to do stuff with addicts and alcoholics. So, part of AA or NA or whichever group you're part of, it's being held accountable to a higher power, whether it's the group, if you don't believe, or whatever, the God of, or spiritual power, or whatever you want to call it, of your own that you bring into it. But it's being held accountable. And so I know that I would be held accountable by not only the voters, but also the court, also everyone else will be holding me to a high standard. And for me as well, those personal beliefs where we respect the Constitution, we root out public corruption, and we fight the crimes that are hurting our community, those are the things that drive me, not just as an attorney, but as a father and as a husband.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's get to another caller. We've got Sean Fagan in the studio today. Sean is running for Republican candidate for LaPorte County prosecuting attorney. What's your question for Mr. Fagan?
Good afternoon, Mr. Fagan. Thank you for coming on to answer questions today. As someone who's a very staunch supporter of Mr. Lake, I think he's done an outstanding job this 3+ years. What are the things that prompted you to run that you think he's doing wrong, and what would you do to change those things? Thank you.
Yeah, so specifically, I think if Steve's getting at is, what are you going to do differently than what John Lake is doing?
Well, I know what I've been doing in preparation for in not only running but for this campaign was, my MBA is in management, and so part of that is knowing the data. Mm-hmm. Know the data so you can interpret it and create results, because you got to keep it simple. So, all those acronyms for management. So when I look at the office and when I look at what the people on the ground are saying, what people who are stakeholders are involved within our judicial system, in our whole public safety apparatus, it's that one, Mr. Lake, the incumbent, you should never say the other guy's name, but the incumbent is he's not a good manager. He's not a leader. And I think that's the main thing. He's not a leader and doesn't play well with others. Mm-hmm. And you can't be a good prosecutor or even a good attorney without being able to make friends and influence people, because really, what is law other than winning cases and representing your client? Now, you may be a good attorney, but if you lose, if you lose situations, no one's going to hire you. In private sector, no one's going to hire you. So you have to win and vigorously defend your client, no matter what situation. So being a leader and working well with others, I think, is the most important thing, because that's what law enforcement wants. That's what other parties within the judicial system want. They want a prosecutor who is organized and knows what he's doing.
All right. Well, we're going to take our final break of the day and get back to some more questions. If you have a question for Sean Lake, you're welcome to call the Liquor Ball on-air line at 219-362-0522, or you can email me at soundoff@967theeagle.com, or write in our comments on Facebook Live or YouTube. I'd love to hear from you there as well. Hey, keep it right there. We'll be right back here in just about 3 minutes on 96.7 The Eagle.
Ben Conowitz here, LaPorte Seamless Gutter, 219-362-9972. Fall is here, and that means leaves and debris for your gutter system. We've got 3 separate types of gutter guard for your home. Leaves and debris come in all shapes and sizes. We don't need a one-size-fits-all for your gutter. Give us a call today for a free estimate at 219-362-9972, or you can visit us on the web, www.lpseamless.com.
A life worth celebrating should be honored in a fashion fitting for the personality. At Haverstock, they build a service around the life story of your loved one. Here's Richard Weiss, owner of Haverstock Funeral Home.
At Haverstock Funeral Home, let me personalize your family's life story. Life celebrations can be a fisherman, a golfer, love Christmas, enjoy the casinos having our slot machine on display, a baker, car mechanic, or even an Elvis impersonator. We do it all for you to keep the memory of your loved one with you forever. Please visit our Facebook page to see what we're doing.
Haverstock Funeral Home and Cremation Service, portraying the life story of your loved one. Learn more at haverstockfuneralhome.com or stop by 602 Maple Avenue, LaPorte.
We put our lives on the line for our country. We braved the unknown. We did what we were told, and we lit up. Our cigarette packs were as valuable as the packs on our back, maybe more. At one point, cigarettes were part of our daily ration. Smoke 'em if you got 'em. And boy, we were smoking 'em. Bumming a smoke was the norm. It was an escape from the reality of dirt, sweat, and forgetting how many days you were so far from home. Never had to worry so long as you had a light and the smoking lamp was lit. If that was you then, get your lungs screened now. Surviving lung cancer starts with a scan. Learn more at screenyourlungs.org. And thank you for your service. This PSA was made possible by industry funding and guidance from lung cancer patient groups.
Your forecast on 96.7 The Eagle brought to you by Harmon Expert Auto Service. If you're looking for a local and quality auto repair company, then look no further than Harmon Expert Auto with 2 locations in LaPorte, 308 Washington or 111 Brighton Streets. Visit their website at harmonexpertautoservice.com or call 325-0444.
Michiana weather.
A mix of clouds and sun this afternoon with highs around 54. Southwest winds 10 to 15 miles per hour. Cloudy tonight, slight chance for scattered showers, 37. From the Weather Center at HometownNewsNow.com. Right now, 54.
Thank you for tuning in to Sound Off. You can now text or email your questions directly to the studio. Call or text 362-0522 or email your questions to soundoff@967theeagle.com. This is Sound Off.
Welcome back to our final segment of Sound Off. My name is Nate Laux. I'm glad to have you with us on the show. We've got Sean Fagan in the studio today. Sean Fagan is running for LaPorte County Prosecuting Attorney as a Republican. And we've got a couple questions left for him. So if you've got a call, you can do 219-362-0522. Let's get to whoever's on the line there. Hey, thanks so much for calling. We've got Sean Fagan in the studio. What is your question for Sean?
Nate, thank you. And Sean Fagan, we certainly give you our due respect and our support to endorse you for the next LaPorte County Prosecuting Attorney. We're looking forward to that. I just got a pet peeve against our the reciting Prosecuting Attorney John Lake. He states that it's not political, but yet let's look at what he says. The wonderful policemen out there, excellent policemen that do their job and get the job done and investigate. That's why a lot of cases are settled and they're not taken to court, because they're settled out of court because they've got them nailed to the cross. So there's no reason to go into a trial. So that's great police work, and we appreciate them always and forever. Now, you've got John Lake saying it's not political. So the bad guys that are convicted, he sends them over to Attorney Shaw Freeman. He sends them to his wife, the judge, Greta Freeman. And that's not political.
Real quick, though, do you have a question? Because we got to get to more questions. What's your question? Go ahead.
What I'm saying is, are you going to clean this mess up? That's what we need you in office for. And thank you, Sean. Appreciate it. Thank you, Nate.
All right, yeah, go ahead. How are you going to clean the mess that our caller thinks is happening up?
Well, from any good management perspective, I think you don't want any major changes within the first 6 months. And let me explain why. First, you need to know what's going on, because what's working, you keep. What's not working, you get rid of. But you have to do change slowly Small changes you can do right away. People see that. Big changes take time, and nothing will happen within the first 6 months in my election or in the term. And because part of what that whole why is building those relationships even more so, because you don't create change without having people on your side, without building collateral, without building credit with those people, because judges aren't going anywhere. They serve for 6 terms. They're like a rock. And some judges have been around for a long time, and they run their courtroom. I've been in number of courtrooms, judges run, it's their house. And I, as the prosecutor representing the state, don't just go in there or boss them around. That's rude. But 2, it's foolhardy to assume that you as the state is the guest within that courtroom. So you have to be respectful, but you can still, like we were talking, win friends and influence people, get people to do what you want by teaching, persuading, advocating slowly, but that's how you get change.
All right, a question here for you. Many prosecuting attorneys and sheriffs and law enforcement have been against a new law that will allow Hoosiers 18 and over to carry a handgun without a permit. What are your thoughts on it? A lot of prosecutors have come out against this, that it will make the community less safe. Is that your view of this law, or do you believe that it was a good law that is going into... I've been thinking about this for the last couple of days. And my thought on it is, no one cares what I think. And let me say why. Because if you want change, as a prosecutor, because if the governor signs it, or if he vetoes and the General Assembly overrides that veto, it happens in July of this year anyway. So by the time I would start as prosecutor, it's already on the books, and my job is to enforce the law. That's what you do as a prosecutor. But if you have a disagreement, if you're for or against this law, you know who you need to talk to? You call the governor's office and say, hey, I'm for it, I'm against it. You talk to your local senator, you talk to your local representative, because that's how you exercise real power. It's a political question, it's a political matter, and prosecutors getting into political questions that's part of that value system that I have. The voters decide. Let the voters talk to their elected representatives who actually have the power to do it. So would you say it was wrong then for the prosecutor and the sheriff and everything to make a call on this, that it would make the community less safe?
Well, Sheriff Boyd's opinion, because it directly affects him, more because the law enforcement, and I believe the Sheriff's Association said was against the bill anyway.
Almost every sheriff, yeah. Exactly.
I read so much, and I'm trying to remember everything.
Yeah,
but
he did come out against it.
But he has a different role for it than a voter, because here's why. So if you are against the bill, you talk to your local representative. That's how you get the change. That's how, whether you want it or against it, talk to your representative, because that's who you need to talk to. And so, for me personally, for a prosecutor, because prosecutors, as attorneys, we're held to a certain level of, we have our rules of professional ethics, and as a prosecutor, you're under much more stringent ethics as well. So for me, commenting on political questions that are way out of my control, no one cares.
So would you say this would be the same about marijuana legalization, which has been a huge conversation here on Sound Off? Most people that call into the show are for pro-marijuana legalization. You don't think a prosecutor should have an opinion on that, or at least publicize their opinion anyway?
Yeah, I mean, if it's the law, it's the law. If it's not against the law, it's not against the law. Because, I personally do not like elected officials meddling in things that are really not their concern.
Yeah, I mean, but again, though, the prosecuting attorney is certainly going to be prosecuting marijuana offenders, though, right?
So if there are if it's against the law, it's against the law. If it's not against the law, it's not against the law, because no one cares what I have to think right now.
Yeah.
It only matters come January.
All right, well, that's it for today's show. I'll give you the final word. Sean, how can people find out more about you, and where can they find you online?
So I'm on Facebook, Fagan for Prosecutor. I'm on there, but that's pretty much my only social media. Or if they want to contact me via email, it's Fagan for Prosecutor 2022, Fagan for Prosecutor 2022 at gmail.com. You can email me there, and I'll probably respond. That's pretty much the only way. Or if you want to give, if you want to find out more, just check out the LaPorte County Republicans. That's the way to go.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. And again, we want to encourage you to head over to hometownnewsnow.com, and you can see our election HQ, where there's lots of information about the local candidates on there and their platforms and things like that. We're going to continue to have as many candidates as we can. I'm trying to get it to where, if we have the prosecuting attorney candidate in one show, hopefully in that same week, you'll have a chance to vote for either one of them in the general election. So, hey, be good to yourself, be good to others, and keep listening to 96.7 The Eagle.